this lesson, the class will simulate the experience at Jamestown before and after the arrival of Sir Thomas Dale. The students will become colonists who are expected to work to pay the price of their passage to America. The game is played over several rounds, each of which can last up to 2 minutes. In the early rounds of the game, students are not rewarded for working hard. Instead, they are compensated based on what the group creates. In later rounds of the game, students are rewarded for what they create, and so will get involved in creating more. For this simulation, you will need 2 large bags of M&Ms or similar candy. We use Starbursts. You'll also need 2 to 4 sheets of the work grid per student. A large amount of scratch paper cut to sticky note size would also work well. Use the scenario visual to introduce the simulation, explaining their role as indentured servants that have just arrived in Jamestown in 1610.
But Jamestown was definitely one of the earliest settlements in Britain's North American colonies. The colony failed not once, but twice, 1607 and later in 1609, and they were almost on the verge of failing a 3rd time, and that's where our activity will pick up today. The majority of the colonists who died in each attempt succumbed to starvation. Survivors of the failed missions document the fact that there was plenty of food available. So what was it? If there was food available, how could there be food available and be dying of starvation? That's where we find ourselves in this activity. You're one of those colonists. Not only are you a colonist, you're here on an indentured contract.
Their production in the activity represents the work they do for the Virginia Company to pay for their passage to the New World. The candy represents the reward. Emphasize in detail the instructions for work they must complete to receive the candy. Here we have them drawing a detailed stick figure in each box of their work grid or on each scratch piece of paper.
And so what we're going to be doing is drawing this little guy right here. What do you notice about this guy? He's not the prettiest, he says. He has a green face. I don't know if he's feeling ill. You don't have green crayons or even colored pencils, but you can represent that by just kind of shading his face, okay? What else do you notice about him? It's a stick figure, and he only has 4 fingers. 4 fingers on each hand. These are very important details that every single one of you is going to create a stick figure like this, okay? So a shaded head, 4 fingers. What else do you see? 7 hairs. 2 going in this direction and 5 going in this direction, okay? So 7 hairs, 4 fingers, pretty large, check mark feet and legs. We have 1 ear. You see all those details? That's what the managers are going to be looking for. That's what you're going to be creating, okay?
Hire a few managers to check work quality, count production, and motivate the students. Set a time for each round, 1 to 2 minutes.
On your marks, get set, go.
Start round 1, encouraging students to produce as much as they can. Managers should walk around checking quality.
These are good. This one's good.
Irresponsible.
Okay, next time. You got to work harder, okay? This is for all of us. Our survival depends on this, okay? All right. Is that a fingerprint unlock? Okay, we got 17 seconds left. Okay, time's up. Time's up. And our managers are going to come around and count how many you have produced. Any that are not finished, like Colin has a whole row here of ones he started, but you can tell he never quite got to this whole row here. So any of those, you go ahead and just cross off, and we're going to come around and count the ones. What is this? What happened here?
I messed up.
Okay. All right. Okay. And what about this? This is like an @ sign for a head. No?
Yeah.
Okay, we're not going to be able to count that one, but oh, goodness sakes here. Let's see. That one was really good. Your first one was really good.
At the end of the round, managers should collect production slips or count completed units and record the total production on the board. Pay the workers 3 candies apiece and reward the managers with a larger number of candies.
Okay, thank you. Aren't we glad that Brennan produced 10? I mean, thank you, Brennan. We're all benefiting. We're all getting these Starbursts. We had Duncan with 8. All right, you guys ready for round 2?
Yeah.
Any boxes? I'm going to use Colin as an example. He already started these boxes and he didn't finish. Okay, so what he's going to go to where he has brand new clean boxes, and that's where you're going to start. If it's on the first page, if you have like 4 on the bottom or 3, just draw a line under where round 1 ended. Maybe cross out all the round 1s, and round 2 is going to start in a brand new clean box. Okay. All right, let's get 3 minutes on the clock. Jordan, 3 minutes on the clock.
Production will likely increase in round 2 as students learn and master the production techniques. But after the 3rd or 4th rounds, production will begin to decrease. As production decreases, reward students with fewer candies. During the rounds, observe student work habits and listen for complaining. Are some students producing more than most or a lot less? Are students taking breaks or quitting early? Are they getting lax in their attention to detail? Don't punish this behavior or decrease or increase anyone's reward because of this. Just call attention to it and remind them that the Virginia Company wants them to produce as much as they can. As soon as production drops off, or students are convinced that another round with the same rules will not yield a better outcome, ask for proposals for rule changes.
And back here in the back, Mackenzie, they got kind of sloppy, and then she just kind of stopped early, and then I also noticed a protest sign on her paper that said, "Better pay for better work," is what she said. So, are you guys unhappy with the rules of the game? Yes? You have any ideas you want me to listen to?
Justin's idea that we allot resources according to how much products someone produces.
Okay, well, let me just speak for the Virginia Company, since that, that is I work for the Virginia Company. And I have to say that with the Virginia Company, we've taken a big risk. We've put a lot of money into coming over and setting up this venture. And even we took a risk on you guys, right? And the contracts. And it's costly to take care of you guys and to feed you guys. And in order for me to, to make a return on that, I need to get at least two of everything that you produce, at least 2 of those creatures for the Virginia Company. But I'm okay with anything above that to paying you directly for your starbursts. If you make 5, you would get 3 starbursts. If you make 7, you would get 5 starbursts. Does that sound okay to you guys? You want to try it? Okay, time on the clock.
Paper.
Oh, now they're begging for paper before we start.
Give me paper.
Eventually, they'll propose that students be rewarded for their individual production. Thank them for their ideas. Explain that you've decided to implement some of their ideas and display the new rules visual. Walk around and call attention to things like how focused and productive the students are. Point out students that were lax in earlier rounds and are now working diligently.
I noticed this chatty table over here is really just concentrated and working very, very efficiently.
Call time and have the managers collect and count the total produced and pay the students individually according to the new rules. If time permits, you may want to run an optional additional round or 2 and watch as students begin to break the work into assembly lines or adopt other creative ways to increase production. During your debrief, ask students why the outcome was different in the earlier and later rounds. Help them understand that the people didn't change, but the rules and incentives did.
Notice what happened to production in that last round. So Mackenzie's idea worked. She said, how about we get paid based on our work, right? Because in the beginning, you weren't paid based on your work. You were just, everybody got the same, whether you made 1 or 3 or 11. I know, Mackenzie, some people were vocal about that they were getting frustrated. They're working, they don't feel like they're being rewarded for the work that they're doing, their hands are cramping up, and something changed in that last round. Is it that all of a sudden your values changed and you just valued hard work more in that last round? No, you're the exact same economic history for leader students that were in round 2 and round 3. You're the exact same students. So was it that people were lazy? In the beginning round, your work was completely divorced from your reward, right? You worked, but even if you worked harder, it didn't mean that you got rewarded more. In fact, you could be rewarded exactly the same, even if you actually double. In fact, Ben doubled his work, and he got rewarded the same as everybody else, right? And that was the round, I think, that Duncan took the round off. So frustrating, Ben? By the last round, he produced 7, right? From 1 to 7. But he got paid the same as Duncan. That last round, he was working a lot of you were working really hard, even if you were tired, because the incentive was different. Now, that reward was going to be based on your individual efforts.
An important event led to Jamestown becoming a viable colony, the arrival of Sir Thomas Dale in 1611. He understood the problem at Jamestown, and as High Marshal was in a position to address it. He instituted a system of private property in which every man was to receive 3 acres of farmland, which he was allowed to cultivate. The Virginia Company could compel the labor from the settlers for only 1 month a year, and that month could not be during harvest or planting. In economic terms, Dale introduced private property, which brought with it the right set of incentives. The effects of this change were dramatic. The reforms went into effect in 1612 or 1613, and Dale left the colony permanently in 1616. By the time he left, Jamestown was a thriving colony. Sir Edwin Sandys, treasurer of the Virginia Company, wrote that Dale has reclaimed almost miraculously those idle and disordered people and reduced them to labor and an honest fashion of life. Perhaps most telling were the words of John Rolfe in 1616. Whereas heretofore we were constrained yearly to go to the Indians and entreat them to sell us corn, which made them esteem very basedly of us, now the case is altered. They seek to us, come to our towns, sell their skin from their shoulders, which is their best garments, to buy corn. Yea, some of their petite kings have this last year borrowed 400 or 500 bushels of wheat, for payment whereof this harvest they have mortgaged their whole countries, some of them not much less in quantity than a shire in England. Close by emphasizing a crucial difference between the earliest and the later years at Jamestown: property rights. When the settlers of Jamestown worked only for the company with no ownership of what they produced, people starved. When they were allowed to work for themselves, the colony grew and thrived.